Young, this is quite a ticket you have here. I see you've been on an extensive trip. Africa, Europe, and even Israel.
Yes, it's a trip I'll never forget. We visited many wonderful places, none more interesting than Israel.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Israel, that is interesting. We're hearing a great deal about that new country these days. By the way, my name is Muntz.
Muntz. J. Palmer Muntz.
That's right. How do you know?
Winona Lake Bible Conference, of course. I can readily understand your interest in Israel. Don't you have an annual conference on prophecy and the Jew?
We surely do. Bible students from all over America gather each year at Winona Lake to discuss the significance of current events relating to Israel, especially as these developments are presaged in Bible prophecy. But frankly, our primary desire is to reach Jews all over the world with the truth that Jesus of Nazareth is their promised Messiah. Israel certainly is a fertile field for Christian missionary activity. By the way, what was your reason for going to Israel?
My reason for going to the Holy Land was the same as that of countless other Christians who, for centuries past, have gone there to see with their own eyes the land where Jesus lived and died.
Would you mind telling me all about it?
Gladly. I was especially impressed with changeless, timeless quality of the places I saw. People seemed to be coming and going there as they must have come and gone for centuries. There's something about the Near East which sets it apart as different from all the rest of the world. Here, tradition is still a respected concept. And yet, with all its ancient customs and traditional manners, the 20th century invasion is seen on every hand. An invasion of Western clothing and bright, shining gadgets. Ancient streets, which have for centuries known only Eastern ways, are now looking out on a strange new world. A world of begrudging acceptance of concepts both new and foreign. One cannot help but sense an indifference here to the modern tempo of Western life. A leisurely, casual pattern of activity is seen on every hand. An unhurried pace. A prosaic outlook bordering on fatalism. The Arab of Jerusalem, although now a city dweller, is essentially a son of the desert. A nomad. Since the dawn of history, this troubled land has been a highway for rampaging armies. Egyptians sweeping to the north, the Medes and the Persians from the east, Greeks and Romans from the west, Napoleon, General Allenby. Since it was strategically located on the main overland route from the north to the south, most of these military leaders considered Palestine not so much as a prize in itself, but rather as a means to an end. Scars of this history are seen everywhere, as evidenced in the ancient ruins of battles long past, in the retarded state of economic development, but most of all, as seen in the lines of care and worry etched on the faces of its people. War has passed this way many times. None more devastating than the Arab-Israel War, leveling peaceful homes and churches, erecting grotesque monuments in their places. Massive walls can be crushed by modern bombardment, but barriers of racial prejudice erected in the hearts of men constitute an insurmountable Maginot Line of hatred. The Wailing Wall is now deserted. What was once the scene of praying Jews is now a lonely, dead-end street where only the steps of an Arab soldier on guard to keep the Jews away can be heard. For centuries, Jews came from every land to write their prayers on bits of parchment, to beat their heads against these massive limestone courses, to grieve their hearts in agony because of their dispersion. Many are the Jews who have wailed here anticipating the Messiah's coming, praying for that day when the chosen one of Israel, David's son, would redeem the nation. Jerusalem. Never to be forgotten is the thrill of passing through Bethany and over the shoulder of the Mount of Olives. There it is, spread out before you. One of the oldest cities in the world, and to the student of Bible lands, easily the most important. A few miles from Jerusalem, at the outskirts of Bethlehem, we came upon the Cave of the Shepherds, where the shepherds who watched their flocks by night heard the announcement of the Messiah's birth. The Church of the Nativity is enshrined in our minds as the site of the Savior's birth. At the tiny entrance to the church, we thought of the words of Jesus.
Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice, and will open the door, I will come in unto him, and will sup with him, and he with me.
One of the high points of our trip was seeing the ancient earthen pottery in the home of Professor Sukenik, in which the famous Dead Sea Scrolls of the book of Isaiah were discovered. These seldom photographed manuscripts, which were recently discovered, are the oldest Hebrew manuscripts of the Old Testament extant, reputed to have been in existence several hundred years before the time of Christ. Of outstanding archaeological value, the Isaiah scrolls establish beyond any question that one man was, under inspiration of God, the author of that major prophetic work. Professor Sukenik translated for us from the original Hebrew Isaiah's description of the suffering servant who carried our sorrows, was bruised for our iniquities. How natural to go from Isaiah to the place of the skull, to Calvary itself, to that site which is accepted by most evangelical scholars as the authentic place of the crucifixion of our Lord. As you walk down the side of Calvary, at the bottom of the hill you come to the Garden Tomb. Here one must pause to read the words of Matthew describing the glory of that first Easter morning when the angel of the Lord descended from heaven, rolled back the stone from the door, saying,
Fear not ye, he is not here, for he is risen as he said. Come see the place where the Lord lay, and go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead.
From the Garden Tomb, we went to the Mount of Olives, which dominates Jerusalem on the east. It thrilled us to stand there and read these words from the Acts.
Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus which is taken up from you into heaven shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven.
Shall so come in like manner. These words, like the tolling of a bell, keep ringing in my ears. Since returning from the Holy Land, I've been unable to forget them. I sincerely believe they are the most important words in the world.
Speaking of the second coming of Christ, you might be interested in an article I've just been reading in Christian Life magazine, in which the editors have reiterated the idea that perhaps we have only a short time left before the end of this age. I've been a student of Bible prophecy for years, and have been especially interested in those signs of the end time relating to the nation of Israel. Did you see anything in the Holy Land which would indicate a possible fulfillment of prophecy?
Yes, I certainly did. In fact, I returned from the Holy Land with an altogether different feeling than I expected to have. Visiting the historic shrines of Christianity was, of course, of great interest and blessing. but I was equally impressed with the things that are occurring in that land today. Events unfolding in Israel before our very eyes. As you look out over the New Jerusalem, after crossing the 50 yards from the Arab-held Old Jerusalem through the famous Mandelbaum Gate, you'll be impressed with a marked contrast between two civilizations living side by side, yet centuries apart in character. In contrast with the 10th century Arab world, with its primitive housing, shops, and transportation, we have modern Jewish Jerusalem. Commerce and trade, business activities of every sort, architecture reflecting all the advantages of contemporary design and utility, shops catering to all the desires of Western living. Women of Israel find the window displays of Zion Square as irresistible as American women on Fifth Avenue. The traffic problems peculiar to city life in the Western world have invaded even the Holy City. And of course, Tel Aviv, the hill of eternal spring. For a number of years, the only truly Jewish city in the world, now one of the fastest growing metropolitan areas in all of the East. In the great cities of Israel, one feels the pulse of a nation awakening to its rebirth. Not since Solomon's reign has the nation's heart beat with such enthusiasm and vigor. Standing in front of the Knesset building, which houses the national legislature, I realized that for the first time in over 2,000 years, Israel is a nation again. She has written her own constitution, coins her own currency, and the shield of David proudly hails her freedom. The menorah, the seven-branched candlestick of Solomon's temple, now adorns the legislative house. On every hand, the ancient symbols fit into the modern setting. The sheaf of wheat, suggesting the continuance of Israel's seed. Perhaps you also will think of Isaiah 1:7.
For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel.
And again you will see the fig tree being used as a national symbol.
Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors.
War always strikes terror to the human heart. The world well remembers that on the very day that the existence of the infant state of Israel was announced, 5 proud Muslim nations proclaimed they would push the Jews into the sea and return the land to the Arabs of the Middle East. Superiority of manpower and resources of war were on the side of the Arabs. 40 million Muslims surrounded a small island of only 650,000 Jews. The passion to destroy the Jewish state possessed every class of Arab, from peasant to pasha. What the world, particularly the Arabs, did not consider was the vigor of these men who make up the Hebrew Haganah. Here are men whose tempers have been forged in the concentration camps of Buchenwald and Dachau. Nor did a watching world take into account God's ultimate purpose for Israel, as revealed by such promises as that of Isaiah.
And they shall be safe in their land, and shall know that I am the Lord, and have broken the bands of their yoke, and delivered them out of the hand of those who served themselves of them.
The God of Israel fought for his ancient people, although they were not aware of it. El Shaddai, the Almighty, had revealed himself. This was the hour for their deliverance. Gladness and song, the sound of dancing was heard throughout the length and breadth of the land as young and old gave vent to their joy in the ancient victory dance, the Hora. The existence of the new state of Israel owes much to an army of men, women, and children, valiant heroes, the evidence of whose sacrifices are seen in every part of the land.
If I forget Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning.
Grim relics of trucks, tanks, and other military equipment are left alongside the highways as a perpetual reminder of a courageous people who have won a monumental victory. Over the Knesset building, where the Jewish parliament meets in legislative session, there is a flag, the first Jewish flag in modern history. It was Isaiah who wrote,
He shall set up an ensign for the nations.
Here is a democracy with its own president now. One day it will have a divine king. Within the political and religious framework of the new state of Israel, there are many devoutly Orthodox Jews, keenly conscious of their ancient heritage, dating back over 4,000 years. This Orthodox Jewish segment of the Israeli population controls in many elections the actual balance of power, and is campaigning for a stricter application of the Mosaic Law. It is deeply significant that prayer is offered daily throughout the land for the coming of the Messiah. Children of Orthodox parents are being raised in the ancient Hebrew tradition, and at an early age are learning again the ancient promises of the prophets who spoke of the Messiah of Israel. One segment of the population, called Zealots, lives in momentary expectation of that Messiah's appearing. Zealot leaders forbid the acceptance even of the temporal authority of the Jewish state. They deny that the government has any right to legal existence until the Messiah comes. It is among these and other Jews in the new state of Israel that I believe you will find a fertile ground for the gospel. Many of these people would gladly receive the good news of the true Messiahship of Jesus of Nazareth. At the Rock of Judgment at Meron, I was interested to learn that the Hasidim Jews have selected a place where they expect the Messiah to sit in judgment upon the world, thus indicating their keen messianic expectancy. This is located high amid the Galilean hills, adjacent to the ruins of an ancient synagogue where the tablets of the law were once hidden and preserved. In all these gestures of age-long hope, the very land itself seems to cry out, "How long, O Lord? How long?"
Well, this messianic consciousness on the part of the nation of Israel is certainly very interesting to those who are students of Bible prophecy. It's remarkable that even though, as Paul tells us, the nation is blinded in part, their vision obscured by unbelief, they nevertheless do feel the pulse of history, the tide of destiny, and recognize that the God of Abraham is bringing back his people into their promised land.
Because you're a student of Bible prophecy, you'll be especially interested in the modern city of Haifa, one of the most important places in Israel today. Spreading out over the shoulder of Mount Carmel, dominating the blue Mediterranean across the Bay of Acre, it is today host to more immigrants than any other city in the world. Not only is it the principal seaport for commerce and trade, but it is for many of Israel's immigrants the port of entry. Its varied and colorful street scenes constitute the first impression of the new immigrant. Its gently sloping streets, winding through residential and business areas, open new vistas of opportunity to the newcomer. It is to Haifa first that many of the lost sheep of Israel return. Return across the sea from the torture chambers of Germany, from behind the Iron Curtain, Poland, Hungary, Romania, from Iran and Yemen, from Africa and the islands of the sea, a continual stream of aching humanity in search of freedom and a nation of its own. Witnessing the unloading of an immigrant ship, I wondered, is this what Isaiah meant when he wrote,
"And it shall come to pass in that day, that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth."
You will meet people over 100 years of age who will tell you they have come back to the promised land not to die there, but to welcome the Messiah whose coming they confidently expect. It is to people such as these that then Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, in his address on the occasion of the second anniversary of Israel's independence, significantly quoted Isaiah 43, 5 and 6.
"Fear not, for I am with thee. I will bring thy seed from the east, and gather thee from the west. I will say to the north, Give up, and to the south, Keep not back. Bring my sons from afar, and my daughters from the ends of the earth."
In the first 20 months of its existence, the new state of Israel absorbed approximately 250,000 immigrants into its economy, which, on a percentage basis of the population, would be equivalent to 55 million in the United States. In another 16